What's up, A to Z Sports Prime Time? I'm your host, Easton Freeze. Hope you guys are having a great Tuesday. The 4th of July is behind us, which means we are inching closer and closer towards training camp. Looking forward to our conversation tonight. I have some maybe bad news for you here at the outset. I'm very glad that you're with me here on this Tuesday evening, but I am not live. This is a recording. I know some of you guys really hate the recordings. You prefer to have the live chat going, which is still there. I just can't, talk back and forth with you guys. I'm sorry. I had a thing tonight that I committed to, frankly, since before I knew I was going to be doing these shows on Tuesday nights. So it is what it is. And also it's, July 8th when you're watching this. So cut me a little bit of slack here. I will be live on Tuesdays for the majority of the run, certainly during the season, certainly during training camp. So don't worry about that. I'll be back to cut it up and talk about whatever you guys want to in the chat soon. But for tonight, I hope you stick with me, even though I am a recording from one night ago. I am recording this on Monday night. That's why I'm actually wearing this pinstripe baseball-looking jersey, because it is a beer league soft pitch co-ed softball jersey. Me and some college buddies for years now have on Monday nights played softball. But if you're in the Nashville area, you know that this past Monday, or yesterday when you're watching this, was a rainy one, and it got rained out. So I've been wearing this all day in excited anticipation for getting to play. And now I'm just wearing it here on primetime. Sad that I am not sad to be here with you guys, but sad that I am not out doing that and recording this on Tuesday morning when I plan to record it. So we're getting ahead because I don't have softball. Cool, fine by me. Looking forward to talking about some tight ends. As you can see on the graphic on the screen. As I said last week, I was going to get the assets from whoever around here at A to Z Sports had the assets, and I was going to make this, actually reflect what the show topic is. And I did that. Besides, right down here, Andrew Rising's ugly name on the screen, which I'll have to get that fixed for next time. Not bad, right? So we are talking about tight ends tonight, and I want to kind of go over all of the intel that I dropped in a pair of articles this past weekend at A2Zsports.com, which you can go and read if you'd like to, if you're so inclined, talking about really just the entire depth chart in this room, similar to how we went through the wide receivers last week. But I think this room brings some more intrigue, even though there are less names to cover. I think that it is far less obvious what exactly is going on here. And I question whether or not people are, I really don't even question. I know that people have this wrong right now. I know that I had this wrong a month ago. If you'd asked me before, or 6 weeks ago, whatever it was, before OTAs, I wrote about and talked about how I thought this room would look different than it is, I think, now going to be. I've had a lot of conversations, done a lot of things in the past month that have led me to believe that I was wrong, and this is kind of a mea culpa situation. But really, in my defense, I think everybody's kind of wrong about this. Everybody except for, and you have no idea how much pain it brings me to have to admit, because they are some of my best friends in the world, Zach Lyons and Stoney Keeley over on the F Words pod. They are the closest to right that I am aware of. I don't listen to everybody in the entire market and keep receipts on everything, but I do. I don't listen to everybody all the time, but I do listen to everybody some of the time, because I think that is part of my job, is to keep up with what people think around here. And for what I can tell, people to varying degrees have had this wrong. Zach and Stoney have been the least wrong, at least in their non-dismissal of certain guys and their early dismissal of other guys. And so, not to spoil anything, but this room is going to look different than you probably think it's going to look. And I had it wrong recently, and I am just now realizing the error of my ways. So we're going to talk about that tonight, and it's going to be a good one. I think you'll learn a thing or two about what this Titans roster is going to be. Hopefully by the end of today's episode, you'll be ahead of the curve, and your fellow fans that don't listen to the primetime shows here on A to Z Sports YouTube will say, wow, who saw that coming? And you can say, I did, on July 8th when Easton talked about it on A to Z Sports on YouTube. So that's the benefit of watching tonight, even though it is a recording, and I appreciate you guys sticking around. Just got to pay a couple of bills here before we dive into the meat of the conversation. Shout out to our two lovely and amazing sponsors here on A to Z Sports Primetime. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealership. in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, serving all of Nashville and Middle Tennessee. If you're searching for a trusted Ford dealership near Mount Juliet, Tennessee, then Two Rivers Ford has you covered. As a leading Ford dealership in Mount Juliet, they pride themselves on offering an exceptional selection of new and used Ford vehicles with a particular focus on the ever-popular F-150 and F-250 Super Duty trucks. Their commitment to customer satisfaction and quality service sets them apart from other car dealerships in the area. Check them out, the South's most trusted Ford dealership, Two Rivers Ford, and then our friends over at True Mav Fitness, where you can get your first workout free at truemavfitness.com. They are more than just your average workout. Their signature programming is a challenging boot camp style class that offers high intensity training, and the classes are led by instructors who are consistently pushing your limits and inspiring you to be your best self, not only inside, but also outside the gym. First workout free. Check them out, truemavfitness.com. No workout recycled or repeated, so they keep it fresh. Thank you to Two Rivers and True Mav for sponsoring the show. So, diving into the roster situation with the tight ends, we can I'll go ahead and just set the table. In the articles that I wrote, I actually discounted one guy mistakenly, who I frankly had forgotten was even on the roster. And I'm now having to, in real time, look up the Titans roster again because I've forgotten his name. Anymore. Titans, depth chart. That's what I need to look up. He was added, I think, after training, rookie minicamp. Is Arlads just not showing up anymore? I guess it. Okay. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to. It's because Yahoo. Does anybody else's default browser on their computer sometimes just switch itself? Because mine does. And that's why. Find. Let's see. Depth charts. NFL depth charts. Close the ad. Tennessee Titans. Great radio. Depth chart. Tight end. Finally. Drake Dabney. I'm so sorry to you, Drake Dabney, a UDFA who was a tryout basis player, I believe, earlier this spring, signed on. I did not list him in my projected depth chart on the articles that I wrote. I will mention him here only to say that he is not somebody that is going to make this team. But props to him for making it through the summer and getting a contract that he did not previously have. So that is exciting. The rest of this room, I have them listed in order as Chig Okonkwo as your tight end 1, Gunnar Helm as your tight end 2. Nothing surprising there so far. David Martin Robinson is going to be your tight end 3. We'll talk about that. And Thomas Okonkwo, I think, I don't know this one, but I think is going to be tight end 4. I don't think that's set in stone even behind the scenes. I think that what happens in August is going to make or break that situation, and we'll talk more about that then. And all that leaves undercuts is Josh Whyle, which is a hair surprising, I would imagine, to most folks. So let's dive into starting at the top. We'll get to the Josh Whyle of it all, the DMR, the Thomas Okonkwo, all of that in just a minute. But first, I want to talk about contract year Chig Okonkwo, because I'll be honest, I've been a Chig guy in the past. I was a Chig guy when they drafted him. He's somebody that I'm sure he has let you guys down at times. He has let me down at times in terms of not being a serviceable starting caliber NFL player, but maybe the consistency, the ceiling that we were hoping to see from him when he was drafted. And he is in his contract year this year, and I'm kind of ready to be hurt by him again. The contract year for the most veteran tight end on the roster, by the way. It's crazy that he's the oldest guy, longest tenured tight end there. Naturally, very big season for him. His first 3 professional seasons have been somewhat frustrating, a roller coaster up and down at times. But in fairness, I would guess that if you gave him a little bit of truth serum, he would probably tell you that the stability of the situation around him, especially at quarterback, has been a frustrating roller coaster from his perspective, which fair, right? But them's the breaks in the NFL, and that's not going to matter once he gets to the negotiating table next spring. Now, so far in the NFL, Chig's statistical production has been consistent. He's averaged right around 500 yards a season, had 30 catches. His first season, I believe, off the top of my head, just under 500 yards. And then in his second year, just over 500 yards on roughly 50 catches. Last year, again, just under 500 yards, over 50 catches. So he's had 30, 50, and 50 his first three seasons. And when the ball comes his way, he tends to squeeze every last drop of yardage out of the play. And that's my favorite thing about watching him play, the way that he has no regard for humanity, neither his own nor anybody else on the field once he tucks and runs with the ball. And there's a quote from him that I had to go and dig up on my Twitter from 2023. It replays in my head every single time he does something ridiculous on the field, which tends to be when he has the ball in his hands. And that quote, which I will go and find real quick because I just remember that I have it saved here under bookmarks. He said, so in September of 2023, he said, every time I get the ball, I'm trying to do the most, which is something that I think he embodies when he's out there with the ball in his hands. I have retweeted that many, many times, just whenever he does something ridiculous, because that's the way that he operates. Now, he hasn't been a super big impact in the red zone. He's only had 6 career touchdowns to his name. And that is what separates him from the last Titans tight end will they, won't they contract question that this franchise had, Jonnu Smith. Now, this is an interesting comparison to me because in his first 3 seasons, Jonnu had roughly 500 fewer yards, 70 fewer catches, and 2 more touchdowns than Chig had. I think folks forget how quote unquote slow Jonnu's start to his career was. As a rookie, he only had 18 catches for 157 yards. Season in his third year, which Chig just finished his third year, obviously, 35 catches. Even then, a good 15, 20 fewer catches than Chig had last year, but around 450 yards and 3 touchdowns, which that's a very similar stat line to what Chig has had so far. Now, if you're remembering this in real time and thinking back to how, wow, after his last year in Tennessee, after 2020, when that Titans offense was really humming, and he felt like he was a big part of it, right? And a lot of fans, you may remember personally, or you may remember your friends or folks on the radio really talking about how, you got to bring Jonnu back. They really should try to bring this guy back. Sign a contract, keep him a part of this Arthur Smith, Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill core on offense, because he finally came into his own in that last year, right? And that's what really, I think, convinced us to want to keep him around, was that final year. Now, it wasn't the catches or the yards. It really was just his impact in the red zone. It was not the same way. It didn't look the same, obviously, but he kind of had an NWI-esque year, NWI circa 2024, where you just rack up touchdowns and you're a big fantasy topic. And it's like, wow, this guy just knows how to get into the end zone because he had 8 scores that year. Otherwise, very Chig Okonkwo-esque, right? 41 catches, fewer than Chig usually has, 448 total yards, but 8 touchdowns. He was that go-to option for Ryan Tannehill in the end zone. But again, otherwise, a very Chig Okonkwo-esque statistical year. And I think it's important to point out, by the way, that in that season, the Titans scored 59 touchdowns. Does anybody at home want to guess? I'm going to give you a moment, like Dora the Explorer style. I'm going to pause and let you scream out an answer. No, that's the wrong way to do it too. This is kind of a weird question to have to ask. The team that Chig has played for in his 3 years so far that scored the most touchdowns. Do you want to guess how many touchdowns that team scored? The answer is 33. Okay, so almost half of what the total touchdowns to spread around, that the love that you're spreading to all these guys statistically, almost half of what that season had for Jonnu Smith. I think that's important. And that's like, is it partially Chig's fault that the offenses weren't as productive as they were? Fair to say yes, right? Because he was a part of the offense. But that's a part of it, is that there's just less to go around. And heading into this Cam Ward-led season, it leaves me wondering what kind of jump Chig could make statistically to maximize his negotiating power, because I struggle to see a year close to double-digit scores for him just because he isn't used in that way a whole lot, right? He's much more of a chain mover in between the 20s who's going to win as a yak monster, somebody who's going to just run over a guy in the middle of the field. He's more that than he is someone that's going to shimmy loose in a phone booth. He's not that kind of player. He's really not even a big-bodied, jump ball winning, physically imposing target in the red zone either, kind of like a Josh Whyle is supposed to be on paper. Again, we'll get to that in a minute because he's not really been that. He's just, you would think he could be that based on looking at him as a prospect. So a leap for Chig this year, statistically, I think is more likely to involve more yards than more touchdowns. So maybe a big year for him looks like, and it's a 700 or 800 yard season with a career high 5 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns. Maybe the Titans offense under Cam Ward and Brian Callahan's tutelage just explodes and they score, they get to go from 33 touchdowns in total to 50 touchdowns in total. And that's a lot more love to go around, and Chig ends up getting close to that 8 number like Jonnu did. But if I had to guess, a big year for him this year looks not too similar to what Jonnu did, more so a guy that's just racking up yards. And so that's, I think, Chig's charge this season, increasing his consistency as a chain mover more so than as a scorer. And that's where he's been liable, I think, for pretty much all 3 years of his career to really impress you one week and make you pull your hair out the next. He's just consistently inconsistent for whatever reason. And if he can prove to be a steadying force and make some of his bigger plays in bigger moments, right? Because I think people go a little bit overboard with how much of, Chig's just a garbage time monster. Well, how much garbage time has he been playing in, right? Like, to maybe no fault of his own. The Titans have gotten down early in a lot of games the past couple of years, and they've also been out of the season by week 11, 12, 14, 15, whatever it is. There have been a number of games at the end of each of the past couple of seasons where it's been over, right? If your glass half empty, and maybe that's something that he needs to really do this year, is try to start faster. But if he can make bigger plays in bigger moments, then I think the Titans front office could be tempted into keeping him around going forward. When Jonnu hit free agency, like I said, fans clamored to have him back. Folks, I don't know if folks were expecting him to be back, but I think folks were expecting the Titans to at least throw an offer his way. And full disclosure, I was not covering the team full time in 2020. So I would have to ask somebody who was more on top of those things that may know whether or not the Titans really sent a serious offer his way. But ultimately what happened, whether they did or not, is that the Patriots obviously signed him to that 4-year, $50 million contract. I think it was like $12 or $13 million guaranteed. And the two parties parted ways. That's the question that I ultimately don't have a super good answer for. What does a contract year for Chig look like where he's signed long-term by Mike Borgonzi and the Titans front office? With rookie Gunnar Helm in the fold, who we're going to talk about in a second, I find it hard not to think that this is a bit of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Because if Chig blows up, has a great year, then he's liable to, like a lot of guys in contract years, get a bloated offer from a desperate team in free agency. And if he disappoints, what incentive do the Titans have to bring him back? And it makes me think that maybe being exactly what he's already proven to be, maybe a 50 catch, 500 yard, 3 or 4 touchdown season for Chig, is actually the clearest path to him returning for the team in a funny way. And even then, this may all rest entirely in the hands of rookie Gunnar Helm. If he shows out Helm, then the Titans are, as something flew into my eye in the middle of me ranting here. If Helm shows out, the Titans are liable to just move forward with him as their centerpiece on a tight end in that room. So clearly the future for Chig after 2025, it's pretty murky. I think what he can control this season is his connection with Cam Ward. And that's where we'll kind of finish up with Chig, is that if those two get on like Ward did with Elijah Arroyo in Miami last year, who, by the way, if you watched Cam Ward's YouTube channel, you saw him throwing with him a little bit this weekend, I believe. I think Elijah, he was either in pictures I saw or in that video, but those two have been working out some this summer. And they had a great relationship. Cam just ripping seam balls to Arroyo, his favorite tight end target down there in Miami. By the way, the only pass catcher of his, well, if you don't count Damian Martinez, the running back, who was more of a running back than a receiving back. Arroyo all UDFAs, led by Xavier Restrepo, obviously. I actually don't know off the top of my head if the other guys got looks elsewhere. I would assume they did. But how crazy impressive is that, by the way, just as a total tangent? Cam Ward, first overall pick, Heisman finalist, a guy that people are super excited about. He had a blow-up final year at Miami after he bounced around to ultimately 3 programs in college. And the supporting cast around him was Jalen Rivers, a tackle who's probably going to be a guard in the NFL and was a day 3 pick, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was a day 3 guy. Not a day 2 guy, that's for sure. So I'm wondering if he was even drafted. I think he was, though. And then a tight end that was drafted on day 2, and a running back who was drafted, I believe, on day 3, either drafted or undrafted at the end of the draft, and then a bunch of guys that were receivers who were undrafted. Like that was his supporting cast. And he was the first overall pick with a bullet, Heisman finalist. Set a bunch of records at Miami, by the way. Really impressive. So if getting back on topic here, if Chig and Cam can establish a relationship like he had with Arroyo, it could turn into something special. And so I guess I look forward to seeing how that pans out. I think that could be a really exciting thing. Now, on to where I was wrong. So I was wrong about this tight end room before OTAs. I want to talk about why, because I think that the common knowledge on the position remains incorrect almost universally amongst fans and media. And we'll start with rookie Gunnar Helm first, and then we'll talk about the guys that I was kind of wrong with here. I don't see any. I bring up him first in the things I'm wrong about because he's a part of this. I don't see any reason why Gunnar Helm can't be the future of the position for the Titans. And the reason why he's tight end 2 is because I think the future may be here pretty soon. Some people, I know Paul Karski and Braden Gall, friends of mine, colleagues who I respect, I think that I know that they have brought up the idea, they've wondered aloud whether or not Helm is already the best tight end on this roster. It's a bit rich for my blood. He's still a rookie at a position that makes for a historically slow transition from college to pro. He's also going to need a season. This is something that is a little bit of intel as well. He's going to need a season to get his body right for the rigors of an NFL length season in such a physical role. I think if you take a look at him without pads on, certainly in camp, he's got soft is the wrong word. Like he's an NFL player. He's definitely not soft, but I think Gunnar would tell you like he's going to need to get into that truly elite NFL tight end shape. He's going to probably need a season to do that. He may end up waning a little bit down the stretch because of that. And that's okay. It's understandable. That's a lot of rookie tight ends are that way, frankly. So those are my concerns. Those are all the disclaimers, the cautions for Gunnar Helm from me. The rest is unbridled upside because Helm was the number 1 target, number 1 in receptions for a great Texas team last year. And that was not by some fluke. The guy put up 60 receptions for 786 yards, 7 touchdowns because he knows how to get open. He's a sneaky threat after the catch. He's just got that veteran tight end savvy to him. Now, will he have numbers like that this year as a pro? Probably not. But in Chig Okonkwo's rookie year, for example, Chig had 32 receptions for 450 yards, 3 touchdowns. That is, I think, a level of impact that is a reasonable bar to expect Helm to clear. So just off the top, he's going to supplant Josh Whyle as the starting wide tight end for this team. I know that people Drew at Iron City Film, who I mentioned last week, I think he's the man and he tends to be in these live chats. So if you're watching this live, Drew, hello, thank you for being good at this. And putting your work out there. I appreciate Drew's content. Follow him at Iron City Film on Twitter. He has wondered in recent articles that I've read about whether or not Helm will eventually be more of an F guy, more of a move tight end like Chig Okonkwo. And I think that there's reason for that. Like, I absolutely see where you're coming from, and that really may end up being the case. But I think to start this year, I feel relatively confident that Helm is going to be starting primarily in that Y tight end alignment, and again, replace Josh Whyle as that primary guy there. So speaking of Josh Whyle, let's go ahead and dive into the truth about that situation, because when we entered OTAs, I thought the same thing that most folks thought, and I think still think, about the Titans tight end and running back rooms, that these are cut and dry. They're going to keep 3 of each, and which 3 that they're going to pick are pretty obvious, right? In the running back room, it is Pollard and why is Hassan Haskins' name in my head? It's because he's my comp for Khalil Mullings, the rookie. Pollard and Tajay Spears and Khalil Mullings are the 3 guys, after I totally panic over names there for a minute. Those are the obvious guys at running back. And by the way, I still feel that way because that's the reality of the situation. But what I thought was going to be the obvious pick at tight end was, okay, well, it's Chig and it's Helm and it is Whyle. And I thought that'd be the end of the story. Well, it wasn't the end of the story. In fact, I even got it wrong again at one point in the middle of OTAs, in the middle of mandatory minicamp. This is the first thing I think that I've been loudly wrong about in my capacity as a reporter since at least the draft, maybe all calendar year in 2025. I've been pretty strong in my reporting. It's been, not to, pat myself on the back, but it's been a good year for your boy. This one, hand up, I got this one wrong. It's a bit embarrassing, but it's true. In the thick of OTAs, I wrote about and hosted a show on the morning show here on the same feed, explaining how I thought the missing piece that we were all discounting in this group was Thomas Okonkwo. I thought he was the 4th guy I had foolishly written off. And it turns out that was half right, but only half right. So almost there, Easton. Here is my 3rd and final answer. And after much thought and much watching and rewatching, and most importantly, many conversations, I'm confident that this is the reality heading into training camp. So if you are sitting there thinking, why should I listen to this guy? He keeps changing his tune. This guy, boy who cried wolf over here. I get it. I don't really know what I can say to you to make you believe me, other than I would bet significant money that what I'm about to say is common knowledge in 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. And it's gonna be on radio. Wow, can you believe this? And people are gonna be writing about it. And again, if you're watching this, you'll be able to say, oh, Easton had this. He was wrong. He was originally wrong, but he did have this weeks ago. Chig Okonkwo, tight end 1. Gunnar Helm is tight end 2. David Martin Robinson is going to be tight end 3 on this team. And Thomas Okonkwo is going to be given every opportunity in August to solidify himself as the reason why they need to keep 4 tight ends instead of 3. Barring an injury or miraculous training camp turnaround and performance from somebody just falls off a map, or Josh Whyle suddenly becomes something that he's not been recently, that's the world we're headed towards in September. And that's kind of the forgotten tight end story here. Is my condolences to Thomas Okonkwo, my double condolences to David Martin Robinson. I wrote those 2 off too soon. I think most people wrote them off, are currently still writing them off too soon, it seems, because they made the initial roster last year. If you recall, they were number 4 and number 5 on the 5 tight ends the Titans kept last year, much to our shock. And they were regular, at least to start the year, the first half of the year, I think at least, they were weekly cuts, or not cuts, but weekly deactivations. Scratches is the word that we use. I promise I work in this industry. They were weekly scratches on Sundays. And I think that they're likely to make the team again in 2025, but this time I don't expect them to be those weekly scratches for the first half of the season. There are 2 big reasons why Josh Whyle's spot on this team is at least fading fast, if not already gone. For starters, they've just needed more production from him than they've gotten. Okay, less than 250 yards on less than 30 catches is not cutting it. It simply is not enough. And while he was at one point seen as the next versatile wide tight end on this roster who could develop as a decent blocker and be a big-bodied, threat up the seam in the receiving game, I think those hopes have left the building with the coach and the GM who originally drafted him, who are no longer here. And sometimes them's just the breaks. Even good players sometimes get got by that. But the second, and I think more important reason, is that even at his best, Josh Whyle has become a bit of a redundancy on this roster. And the only thing he really offers, that, in my estimation, that nobody else in the room can offer at his level, is the physical, literal size of a target that he presents in the red zone. And that's really nice to have in theory, right? 6'7", gangly guy, I say in the most endearing way, like big frame, hard to miss that guy if you're a quarterback. And you like that because it's a big target. It's also somebody that can be a jump ball winner down there. Like that's huge. And it's nice to have in theory, but he's only caught 2 touchdowns in his 2 seasons so far. It has not been the area that he's done the most winning in, despite the reasons to believe he probably could. Everything else in terms of a tight end skill set can be accounted for or beaten by other people in the room. So as a ball carrier, Chig Okonkwo certainly has him beat. As a receiving option, Okonkwo has him beat. As a pure receiving option out of the Y alignment, Gunnar Helm is expected to, if he doesn't already, have him beat there as well. As a blocker, the bar set by Whyle, frankly, has been low enough that Helm might have him beat there as well pretty soon. And I don't know if this is I don't know how broad this misconception is that Whyle is a good blocker. Whyle was supposed to be a good blocker. And looking at him on paper, you might think he would be a good blocker. But I don't know what to say about a guy who last year, what did this guy show as a blocker on tape last year? He showed that on a team that desperately needed blocking help all season long, he was routinely passed up for by the 3rd tight end on the roster and jumbo packages with John Ojukwu adding a bonus tight end out there on the offense, a bonus offensive lineman out there in jumbo packages. Like that's telling, right? And so I don't think there's a very long way for Helm to go. Maybe it takes a year, but for him to be as good or better blocker than Whyle, frankly. And Helm, by the way, did a lot of blocking. He was behind, oh man, who was I gotta go look it up. The tight end from Texas that is now a Panther. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna pause my train of for at least one, I think a couple of years. And during those seasons was much more a blocker than he was the receiving threat that he was as last year. And the group of things and show that can be a strength of his. So I really do think that he'll be a serviceable blocker in short enough order. And then when it comes to more serious blocking assignments as that true that rare true wide tight end thinking throwback, big-bodied grindstone blocking with the lineman while still presenting a small receiving threat. That's what they think Thomas Okonkwo can offer this team. And then on special teams, this is where David Martin Robinson comes in. The expectation is that he's going to be a core special teamer on this roster. Now, I talked last week about what a core special teamer is and how it's something that fans and media perpetually underrate. There are 3 or 4 of those guys on a football team at any given time, and the good ones are worth their weight in gold to a coaching staff. Now, last year, I've had my buddy Justin Miller actually ask me about this. He read this article that I wrote. And I appreciate him doing that, and then came back with me with some numbers saying, "Hey, last year." DMR only played with 55 some odd snaps on special teams and then all the stats and whatever, special team stats, whatever. He didn't do a whole lot. And to be clear, I think the expectation is that he will develop into a newly minted core special teamer. He has not been that in the past. And that's part of I think if he was that last year, we wouldn't all be missing this, right? That's kind of the point of the mystique, the surprise of this all. But the hope is that he's going to be that. And frankly, even if he's not, even if he's just a good teams guy, I think that it's a guy that's going to be playing on teams, not a core guy that can play in all 3 or 4 phases, four phases of teams. That's still more than Whyle offers on teams, which is not pretty much nothing. Right. I don't think that he offers a whole lot there. And that's not even to mention, by the way, with DMR, the athletic upside the coaches see in him, who they think he's kind of the backup F right now, F tight end to Chig Okonkwo. They think that he can develop into a serviceable guy in that role, maybe even the future of that role after this year. So that's the room. And that's the reason the reasons why I've had to kind of do a 180 on what I expect to happen to Josh Whyle. And that's our show. So there's the tight end room. Maybe that came as a surprise. Maybe it didn't. Maybe drop in the comments below how surprised you are and how much you believe me. Is Easton full of baloney on this? Is he making stuff up? I really don't think that I am, but I'm pretty confident about these things. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. I will be back live again, hopefully with this show. Maybe not next week. We'll see, but potentially. But if not next week, then because I'm going on vacation right before training camp. But I off the top of my head, I'm not sure how those things line up. If I'm not live next week, brother, I'll be live for you that Tuesday when they report, I believe, the following Tuesday, the 22nd, if I'm not mistaken. So super excited about that. Looking forward to being live with you guys on Tuesday nights throughout the season. Looking forward to a couple of exciting announcements we have coming here at A2ZSports.com. When you are watching this on Tuesday night, I am here to inform you that tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning, the A to Z morning show will be back from its sabbatical from being live. We took the week and a couple of days off of being live for the 4th of July holiday and vacations and whatnot. Well, Austin, Stanley, and I will be back with you live on Wednesday morning. And starting then, we will be live every weekday morning until forever, I think, at least until the end of the football season, but maybe in perpetuity until we're all dead and gone. So it's going to be a good time. I look forward to seeing you guys there. Thanks for hanging out with me. This has been A to Z Sports Prime.